1. c4. Samuel Reshevsky begins with the English opening, aiming for a flexible and strategic game, but the position will soon transpose into more familiar territory for both players. 1. F6. Fischer develops his knight, the most common and flexible response, keeping his options open for a variety of defensive systems against White's setup. 2. d4. The game now transposes into a queen's pawn opening. Reshevsky stakes his claim in the center, preparing for a classic strategic battle. 2. g6. Fischer signals his intention to play his beloved king's Indian defense, preparing to fianchetto his dark-squared bishop and create a dynamic, unbalanced game. 3. nc3. Reshevsky develops his knight to its most natural square, controlling the center and preparing to challenge Black's king's Indian setup in the most principled way. 3. bg7. The king's Indian bishop arrives on its iconic post. From g7, this piece will become a strategic powerhouse, controlling the long diagonal and serving as the heart of Black's counterattacking plans. 4. e4. The classical setup. Reshevsky builds a formidable pawn center, seizing a significant space advantage and posing the main strategic question to the king's Indian defense. 4. Fischer quickly castles his king to safety, removing it from the center before launching his characteristic assault against White's imposing pawn structure. 5. b2. A solid and logical developing move. The bishop prepares to support the center and clears the way for the king's rook to join the game. 5. d6. Fischer reinforces his central foothold, completing the basic king's Indian structure. He is now ready to challenge White's central dominance. 6. f3. The final minor piece is developed. Reshevsky's setup is a picture of classical harmony, controlling the center and preparing for the complex middle game struggle ahead. 6. e5. The thematic challenge. Fischer strikes at the heart of White's center, creating immediate tension and forcing Reshevsky to declare his intentions. 7. Reshevsky castles his king, completing his development. He chooses the most solid and respected continuation, entering the main lines of the classical king's Indian. 7. nc6. Fischer develops his knight, adding more pressure to the d4 pawn and continuing with the main theoretical path. The battle for the center is now fully engaged. 8. d5. Reshevsky locks the center, a critical decision that defines the strategic plans for both sides. The game now becomes a race. White will attack on the queen side, and Black will attack on the king side. 8. n7. The knight retreats to its ideal post in this closed structure. From e7, it supports the king side and prepares to join the coming attack on the white king. 9. n1. The modern and most challenging knight maneuver. Reshevsky prepares to support his queenside pawn break with c5 and gets his knight out of the way of Black's impending kingside pawn storm. 9. d7. A key and multi-purpose knight move. Fischer prepares to support his kingside attack and keeps an eye on the c5 square, preparing to meet White's queenside ambitions. 10. d3. The white knight arrives at its ideal post. From d3, it supports the queenside advance and controls key central squares, serving as the fulcrum for White's entire strategy. 10. f5. The battle begins. Fischer launches the thematic king's Indian pawn break, starting his kingside attack and seeking to rip open lines against the white king's fortress. 11. h5. Reshevsky decides to release the tension, capturing the pawn. This opens the f-file but also gives Black's knight a powerful outpost in the center of the board. 11. nxf5. Fischer recaptures with the knight, placing it on a magnificent central square. This piece will become a major thorn in White's side for the rest of the game. 12. f3. A solid and important move. Reshevsky controls the key g4 square, preventing any further advance of Black's pawns and preparing to challenge the dominant Black knight. 12. d4. The knight lands on its dream square. From this powerful outpost, it restricts White's pieces, attacks key weaknesses, and becomes the centerpiece of Black's position. 13. n4. Reshevsky immediately challenges the intruder, bringing his own knight to the center to try and neutralize the power of Fischer's well-placed piece. 13. b6. A deep and surprising strategic idea. Instead of focusing solely on the king side, Fischer starts a counterattack on the queen side, disrupting White's own plans of expansion. 14. bg5, Reshevsky develops his bishop with a pin, hoping to create some tactical problems and disrupt the coordination of black's attacking pieces. 14. qe8, Fischer calmly sidesteps the pin, moving his queen to a safer and more flexible square from where it can support both the kingside attack and the queenside counterplay. 15. bd2, a slightly passive bishop retreat. Reshevsky seems unsure of his plan and decides to play a waiting move, but this allows Fischer to continue improving his position. 15. a5, a powerful pawn move that clamps down on the queenside. Fischer fixes white's pawn structure and prevents any further expansion with b4, seizing control of that wing. 16. 1 rupee, the rook moves to the central file, a useful improving move that prepares to challenge black's control and adds more support to the center. 16. Next 2+, a brilliant exchange. Fischer trades his powerful outpost knight, but only to open the e-file for his queen and disrupt the coordination of white's pieces. 17. c2, the forced recapture brings the white queen to the center, but it can also become a target. Fischer has correctly judged that the resulting position favors him. 17. h6, an excellent prophylactic move. Fischer prevents any annoying bg5 ideas and prepares to launch his own kingside pawn storm with the g5 push. 18. b3, Reshevsky tries to restart his queenside play, but Fischer's earlier a5 has made this plan much more difficult to execute effectively. 18. g5, the second wave of the attack begins. Fischer's g-pawn rolls forward, seizing more space on the kingside and preparing to create a decisive breakthrough. 19. a3, Reshevsky prepares to challenge black's queenside control, but he is playing on Fischer's terms, and his plan seems too slow compared to black's kingside threats. 19. qg6, the queen moves to its optimal attacking square. From g6, it puts immense pressure on the white king and directly supports the advance of the kingside pawns. 20. b4, Reshevsky finally achieves his queenside pawn break, but the position has changed, and black's kingside attack is now looking extremely dangerous. 20. nf6, Fischer brings his knight back into the game, challenging white's central control and preparing to swing it over to the kingside to join the final assault. 21. bx5, white captures the pawn, opening the b-file, but this also allows black to create a powerful passed pawn on the a-file in the long run. 21. g4, the attack intensifies. Fischer sacrifices a pawn to rip open the files in front of the white king, initiating the decisive phase of the battle. 22. ndf2, the knight is forced into a passive defensive role, a clear sign that white is under immense pressure and struggling to contain black's ferocious attack. 22. gxf3, the position explodes. The g-file is now open, and the white king is staring down a deadly highway for black's rooks and queen. 23. qxf3, the forced recapture brings the queen to a vulnerable square. It is now exposed to threats from black's well-coordinated attacking pieces. 23. nh5, the knight joins the attack from the flank, a classic King's Indian maneuver. It is heading for the f4 square, where it will create unstoppable threats. 24. qe3, the queen is forced to retreat, a clear admission that the white attack has been completely repulsed and he is now fighting for survival. 24. bx5, a calm and precise move amidst the storm. Fischer recaptures the pawn, consolidating his queenside and securing a long-term structural advantage. 25. Rak1, Reshevsky brings his final piece into the game, hoping to create some counterplay on the c-file, but his position is strategically difficult. 25. bf5, the bishop develops to a fantastic square. From f5, it controls key diagonals, puts pressure on the center, and joins the powerful attack on the white king. 26. c5, a desperate attempt to create chaos. Reshevsky pushes his pawn forward, hoping to distract black from his kingside assault, but it is a futile gesture. 26. nf4, the knight lands on its dream square, creating a deadly threat against g2 and completely paralyzing the white position. The pressure is unbearable. 27. qg3, the only move to defend against the immediate threat, but it walks right into a stunning and decisive combination that Fischer has prepared. 27. bs4, Fischer initiates a brilliant tactical sequence, sacrificing a piece to lure the white rook to a bad square and set up a beautiful queen sacrifice. 28, Rex 4, Reshevsky has no choice but to capture, but his rook is now deflected from the defense of the key e-file, which is the key to Fischer's combination. 28, c4, the Thunderbolt. A breathtaking queen sacrifice that completely shatters White's defensive coordination and forces a winning endgame. A move of pure genius. 29, next 4, Reshevsky is forced to accept the sacrifice, but his position is now completely lost. The tactical storm has left him with a ruined structure and uncoordinated pieces. 29, n2+, the point. This simple knight fork wins back the queen with interest, as black will emerge from the complications with a decisive material and positional advantage. 30, kh1, the king is forced to move, but there is no escape from the consequences of Fischer's brilliant combination. The game has been decided. 30, nxg3+, the knight captures the queen, and the smoke clears to reveal an endgame where black's superior structure and more active pieces guarantee a winning advantage. 31, hxg3, the forced recapture leaves White with a shattered kingside pawn structure, which will be a constant source of weakness for the rest of the game. 31, rs6, Fischer calmly brings his rook to an active square, preparing to invade on the open files and attack White's numerous weaknesses. 32, cxd6, Reshevsky captures the pawn, hoping to create a passed pawn of his own, but this only serves to open more lines for black's superior pieces. 32, cxd6, the simple recapture. Fischer now has a solid pawn structure, while White's is a complete wreck. The rest of the game is a matter of technique. 33, a4, a move to restrict the black bishop, but it is a passive measure in a strategically lost position. White can only wait for the execution. 33, rf7, the rook comes to a powerful post, controlling the 7th rank and preparing to create decisive threats against White's weak pawns. 34, g4, a desperate attempt to create some space for his pieces, but it only creates more weaknesses in his own camp that Fischer will be happy to exploit. 34, bf8, a masterful bishop retreat. The bishop repositions to the long diagonal, from where it will control key squares and support the final assault. 35, kh2, the white king begins to activate, a necessary step in the endgame, but it is too slow and too exposed to make a real difference. 35, kh7, Fischer also activates his king, preparing it to join the battle in the center. The endgame is all about piece activity, and black is superior. 36, rc8, the white rook finds an active square, but it is a lone warrior against a coordinated black army. It cannot hope to defend against the multitude of threats. 36, rb6, the black rook prepares to invade the b-file, creating a new front and stretching White's defenses to the breaking point. 37, ra8, the white rook shifts to the a-file to try and create counterplay, but this allows black's rook to invade with decisive effect. 37, rb3, the rook lands on a devastating square, attacking White's weak pawns and tying down the white pieces to passive defense. 38, bx5, Reshevsky grabs a pawn, but this is a Pyrrhic victory. It allows black's other rook to enter the game with crushing force. 38, rf4, the second rook joins the attack. The two black rooks now form a deadly pair, creating unstoppable threats all over the board. 39, bc7, a desperate attempt to untangle the pieces, but it is too late. The position is collapsing, and there is no defense against black's coordinated assault. 39, rex 4, Fischer wins a key pawn, and his advantage is now completely decisive. The two connected passed pawns will be unstoppable. 40, rxf8, Reshevsky captures the bishop, but it is a futile gesture. The game will be decided by the passed pawns, and blacks are much stronger. 40, rd3, a precise move. The rook prepares to support the advance of the passed e-pawn, which will now become the hero of the game. 41, rf6, the white rook tries to create a blockade, but it is a hopeless task against the might of the black pawns and their powerful rook escorts. 41, rxg4, Fischer captures another pawn, and the material advantage is now overwhelming. However, the position is still complex, and the win must be executed with precision. 42, rxd6, Reshevsky captures a pawn in return, trying to create as much chaos as possible, but Fischer's passed e-pawn is the most important factor in the position. 42, rg7, a superb rook move that controls key squares, restricts the white rook, and prepares to support the advance of the e-pawn. 43, rc6, the white rook is forced into a passive role, a clear sign that white's counterplay has been completely neutralized. He can only wait and hope for a mistake. 43, rxd5, the black rook captures another pawn, simplifying the position and clarifying his winning advantage. The path to victory is now clear. 44, rc2, white is completely paralyzed. He can only shuffle his rook back and forth, waiting for Fischer to deliver the final, crushing blow. 44, e4, the star of the show begins its march. The passed e-pawn rolls down the board, and there is nothing white can do to stop it. 45, a5, a last, desperate attempt to create a distraction with the a-pawn, but it is far too slow and completely irrelevant to the outcome of the game. 45, rd3, the rook moves to an ideal square, blockading the white pawn and preparing to escort its own pawn to the queening square. 46, bf4, the bishop tries to create a defensive barrier, but it is a lonely and hopeless task against the combined power of black's rooks and passed pawn. 46, rf7, Fischer continues to play with perfect precision, improving the position of his rook and tightening the screws on white's hopeless position. 47, g3, this move stops an immediate threat but creates new long-term weaknesses around the white king, which is becoming more and more exposed. 47, e3, the pawn takes another inexorable step forward. It is now a dagger aimed at the heart of the white position, and its advance is unstoppable. 48, rc1, a futile attempt to challenge the pawn from behind, but the pawn is too well supported by the black rooks, and this plan is doomed to fail. 48, re7, the rooks coordinate perfectly. One supports the pawn from the side, while the other prepares to support it from behind. The harmony of black's pieces is absolute. 49, 1 rupee, the white rook is forced to take up a passive blockading position, but it cannot hold back the tide forever. The pawn will eventually break through. 49, ra3, the rook swings over to the queenside, creating new threats and stretching white's defenses to the absolute limit. 50, re2, the white rook is forced to abandon the a-pawn, a clear sign of the complete hopelessness of his position. He is being outplayed on every front. 50, kg6, the king joins the final assault. The black king begins to march up the board, ready to deliver the final, decisive blow itself. 51, kg2, the white king also tries to join the battle, but it is too late and too exposed to make a real difference against black's coordinated army. 51, rook a5, the a-pawn is eliminated, and with it, white's last hope of counterplay. The game is now a matter of converting a completely winning position. 52, rex 3, the rooks are exchanged, simplifying the position. While this relieves some of the pressure, the resulting endgame is still easily winning for black. 52, ra2+, the check forces the white king to a less active square and allows black to maintain the initiative even after the exchange of rooks. 53, kf3, the king is forced to move, but it is a lowly monarch against a powerful black rook and king. The end is drawing near. 53, rb7, Fischer calmly improves his position, preparing to create new threats and slowly but surely squeeze the life out of white's position. 54, re6+, a desperate check, but it only serves to activate the black king even further, bringing it closer to the center of the action. 54, kf5, the king marches forward, embracing the danger and becoming a powerful attacking piece in its own right. The white king can only watch in horror. 55, re5+, another futile check. Reshevsky is just delaying the inevitable, but he is a fighter and will make Fischer earn the full point. 55, kf6, the king contemptuously sidesteps the check, continuing its majestic march up the board. It is the hero of the game. 56, rd5, the white rook tries to create a new defensive setup, but it is a hopeless task against the power of the black king and rook working in perfect harmony. 56, rb3+, the final series of checks begins, forcing the white king into a mating net from which there is no escape. 57, kg4, the king moves to the corner, but it finds no safety there. In this incredibly complex position, both players have fought brilliantly, but the relentless pressure has led to a drawn position.